So I have 11:31, so why don't we start? Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Yukio Okano, and I am the president of your board of trustees. Thank you for coming to our congregational conversation today. The topic of our discussion will be the UUCB budget for 2021-2022. So this is the budget that begins on July 1st of this year. So before we start our program, I'm going to ask Reverend Dana to light our chalice and provide some opening words.
Hello, everyone. And I just want to invite us into, in just a moment, a few seconds of silence, because we have crossed several thresholds this morning already, into worship, into coffee hour, into this conversation as a community. So just take a few seconds, get yourself here. What mindset, what mind-body set do you need now? Then I will light the chalice and do a reading. Let's breathe together. From Patrick Murphin. We gather as leaders, as servants. We gather as ears, as voices. We gather as memory, as hope. We gather as family, as pilgrims. We gather as faithful, as skeptics. We gather as objects, as subjects. We gather as wisdom, as folly. We gather as action, as reflection. We gather as many, as one. As we are, we shall be. As we serve, so shall we lead.
Thank you, Reverend Dana. As you may know, congregational conversations were started a couple of years ago under the leadership of Brian Buck, our past board president. The purpose of these meetings is to address important issues in a timely way, and most of the meetings are focused on the budget and related financial issues. So today's meeting is about our budget for the next church year. As you know, the church fiscal year starts on July 1st of each year and runs to June 30th of the following year. The board wants to promote good communication where church members and friends can express their thoughts and ideas to leadership. The final budget has not yet been finalized. At its next meeting, the board will consider the recommendations of the Finance Committee. Thus, this is your opportunity to hear what the Finance Committee thinks and make known your opinions. The board will present a budget recommendation that will be voted upon at the annual meeting on June 13th. I want to thank David Smith, who chairs the Finance Committee, for being here to present information about the proposed budget for next year. Before I turn the meeting over to David, let me mention a few things. David has another commitment at 12:30, so he will make his presentation first without taking questions. There will be time for questions and answers after David's presentation. So there are basically two ways for you to ask questions, or maybe three. One is to use the chat box in Zoom. You can either type in a question or just indicate that you want to ask the question, and you will be recognized in the order received. Or you can use the raise hand option in Zoom. And if you go to the bottom of your screen, you'll see a reactions option. And if you click on that, you should see the raise hand icon. And once you do that, the hand icon will appear next to your name. And if neither of these work for you, you can wave your hand and hopefully one of us meaning Brian, Hitty, or myself will see you do that. I see we have one person joining by phone, and what I remember from last year, or earlier this year in January, if you press *9, you can raise your hand. If you press *6, you can mute or unmute if you're coming in by phone. So hopefully we'll get through all the questions before David has to leave, but the meeting will continue to address your concerns. So David, if you're ready, you're on.
Yeah, yes, I am ready, and I'm very appreciative of the worship service we have, because we can start off at the beginning with you knowing that I might be a less than reliable narrator. In a minute or two, we're going to look at version 14 of our draft budget for next year. Yeah, that's true. It took us a lot of time to get this right during a pandemic. I usually start a group presentation with either a joke or good news, and I'll be kind to you, I'll give you good news. The good news is that we here on Zoom, this Zoom broadcast, are all aware of how our worship associates and technology advisors have kept us together as a community during the last 14 months. Well, last Wednesday, Brian Buck and I sent a in-between Sundays announcement that we had accepted a grant or been accepted for a grant to improve our technology so that when we begin our services back in our sanctuary, we will also have improvements to our technology to continue broadcasting, and we're broadcasting on Zoom and YouTube. And the good news is that we needed to raise $8,000 to be able to get a grant of $8,000 to buy things such as additional cameras, microphones, perhaps training, a number of things so that our broadcast can continue and improve. Kitty Merrill wrote the grant, and I submitted the grant and had support from other leaders in the church. And that grant is going to be fully funded probably within a week. And so if anyone, we've asked people not to make, at this point, not to make large contributions because we're almost done. So if you want to give $5 up to $500 to complete this grant, email me and I'll mark that job as done and that we are ready. In a minute, we'll look, and it will take us months to put that into place and to get the equipment done. This is the beginning of the process, but it's a very successful beginning thanks to generosity, the generosity of our members. Our budget's not written by a group of elves in a secret basement underneath Berg Hall. It's created by everyone in our congregation who wants to participate. And thanks for being a part of this process. It is your budget, and you honor us by giving us your reactions and your feedback. Your board of trustees will look at this one more time later this week before putting it to a vote for you. This is a truly democratic governmental process. It's up to you or not, whether you want this budget. So thanks to those who helped the budget construction process, especially Yukio O'Connell, the president of the board, finance committee members, Mark Gale, Todd Collard, Jim Waldron, Sandy Atkins, Claudia Silverman, our treasurer, Ron Dallas. Thanks to the personnel team that really provides the data for 70% of our expenses. And that is David Hinkle, Laura Farr, and Shelley Sussman. And Reverend Dana works with both of those, both the team and the committee, to create the budget. And it becomes version 14 because we get new information all the time. So first, let me give you a brief summary of where we are this year. This year, we took a really significant hit to our pledge flow of income donations because of COVID. We have since recovered from that. We thought when we wrote a budget last year, all of those people that I've mentioned, that on June 30, we would be short about $16,000 in current revenue to meet the year we're living through, which will end July 1st. In fact, as of April 30th of this year, just recently, we have a net gain of $19,000. So it's very likely we'll end up about on target for the year. Our income went down and our expenses went down due to COVID and due to having a lot of things we don't do in the building that money would have been spent. We also got a $42,000 PPP grant from the federal government, of $42,000 for this year. And the Finance Committee considers that if we have 3 months in our operating fund, we are prudent in that the Finance Committee is doing its job and looking out that we don't get into trouble. We currently have in our operating fund 9 months of all of our expenses. So we are truly financially in good shape, So now let's take a look at the proposal for next year. And I'll go through a short version, a long version, and then I'll go back up to the top of the long version. And I'll go more slowly through it as long as my time allows for individual questions. And that should help. By the way, when we did these 8 or 9 years ago sessions like this, we sometimes had as many as 7 people attend. So this is a remarkable introduction that was started by Brian Buck, and he and I worked together on it so that the congregation has a chance to look at what's proposed before the board makes its decision what to show you to vote on. Okay, I'm going to share the screen now. And I'm going to pull this up. And I'm first going to show you, for those of you who remember before the internet, if you needed help on a homework assignment, you would look to Cliff Notes. So if you hadn't read a book, you haven't done something for your class. One time I had a Shakespeare class during the summer and I was supposed to read all the plays of Shakespeare in one summer. So I got records and listened to about half of the plays. This is what most people in the congregation care about. They don't care as much about the details as everyone else who's involved in finance and personnel committee and the president and the minister. They care primarily about, are we going to be okay next year? So this is the short version. And sometimes in the annual meeting, we never even go beyond this because the people who wanted to know the nuts and bolts either asked me or someone else on the finance committee or emailed us and got their answer about the details answered. And so we don't end up having to have this full detailed review of the budget. And the review is this, and I'm moving up here. Salary increases reflect UUA guidelines for the area where we live and the positions that we have. There's no automatic COLA for this year, which in most years there is. And 4 employees will get merit raises for this year. And there is 1 new part-time position for sexton related to the building and the grounds care. The estimated pledge revenue is within $500 of what we thought it would be back in January when we estimated how successful would the pledge campaign be for this year. So doesn't need to be changed, even though the date has changed since that took place. So, and you can see from the next box down how much the pledges are related to our total revenue. So we have our total revenue. Our total staff is about 70% of our total expenses. So that is the most important factor, is the generosity of our members, and the number of members that we have is related to that as well. Our total expenses are here at just under 500,000. And I'll speak about this in a minute on the next page, but if we had no special help this year, we would be $100,000 short of having current income to match current revenue. If this is where it stopped, this would be absolutely an untenable budget unless we said, okay, is it okay to take 100,000 out of our savings for this year? Fortunately, really fortunately, this makes me as happy as the federal success from under the leadership of a new president and the success in California, financial success in California as well, which is in today's paper. We have been accepted for a $5,000 grant and from the county of Ventura, and they are going to have another option for us to apply for another $5,000 before this month is out. The Spirit Level Foundation has sent us $12,740 in funds, and the federal government has given us $60,000. Those are in the checking account. We've received them. We have a budget deficit proposed of about $19,000, and that's about 3% or 3% of our total expenses, which is plus or minus on our budget, is insignificant. This is still not something, this 97,000 is still not something I'm glossing over. In the last 4 years, each year when we first started the budget process, we said, what are we going to do? How's it going to work out? And then this year, 2 years we get of COVID. In every single year of those 5 years, it's been longer than 5. It started before Reverend Dana became our minister. We were looking at the beginning of the budget process, an untenable deficit. But once again, through what has happened, both bad and then good, we can put before the membership a budget that has a reasonable deficit. Okay, now we're moving to the page where I will go through what is in yellow first, and I will then, I'll go through it rapidly, and then I will scroll back up to the top of the budget and start going through it slowly. And I'll be able to talk until 12:30, and we might get through it by 12:30. But if not, there are a number of people who know this budget well enough to continue answering your questions. So I'll go through the yellow things, and I'll move slowly. I'll move rapidly the first time through. So the pledge commitments I've already talked about. They are the most important. There is an estimate for other donations, which is lower than normally. And there's an estimate for the auction. And we got half of this year, and we don't know when or exactly what the auction will be like next year. So we moved down to the bottom of the total income projection. And if you look at last year, 437,000. This year, 400. Our actual revenue from our pledges and from fundraising and special donations from people, that actual income is still going to be down. It has affected the COVID recession, has affected our flow of income from our membership. And that's not a surprise. The entire national economy is impacted. Business owners are impacted. It's going to take more than a few months for that to happen. But the people who make estimates about how will the economy do this well are saying that it will continue to grow. The total of our packages for our employees are reflected. Here is the ministers, and the minister is getting a 4% merit raise, and this is in line with her, what she provides for us, and her seniority as far as the number of years that she's been a minister. And this is still not as high as is justified by the UUA records. And it's also reduced because our minister is foregoing some of the funds in her package to decrease the total costs. In our congregational administrator, she before only got an auto allowance, and in line with making her position a professional position, she is getting a line for professional expenses. These monies are spent if she does continuing education, or she does things that improve and enhance her professional capabilities as a congregational administrator. They're not money that you put in your checking account, and then if you decide to use them for other expenses, you do. And so she got a merit raise. Our congregational administrator got a 4% merit raise there, as well as some professional expenses. Our membership coordinator, it looks like, because it says 21% increase in total pay package, that he got a huge raise, but he didn't. In fact, what happened is mid-year, it was considered by the Board of Trustees appropriate to give that position some medical insurance money, or portion based on the hours. And that happened mid-year, so it wasn't in last year's budget, and it bumps that up. He got a 7.5% merit raise. And so that is what was happened to his position. This in yellow shouldn't be in yellow, but this moved to 35 hours a week. I think it moved at the first of this year. And there's a significant increase here because Fidelity is beginning at an entry-level religious educator, and she will move through the process related, we hope, of education and learning through work. And Emily left us, and she was nearly at the top of the scale for a religious educator, and had the years of experience related to that. But that greatly reduced our cost by 27% for that position. You can see that's from $75,000 to $55,000. The music director here, it shows a 3.7% increase in her total package, and that also includes, that is a merit raise as well in that. It's just put differently here. This is a position that at first I had no idea what a sexton was. I had some idea it had something to do with what high school kids did that their parents didn't want them to do with their phones. But in case you're not old enough to remember what this is, we had one at the old place on Foothill, and it's someone that takes care of the property. I actually thought it was a sexton, which Reverend Dana helped me figure out no, those are only on ships, David. Okay, other staff salaries. There's a merit raise for our AV technician, and it's definitely audio and visual, definitely visual. And he has increased hours because it takes a lot more time for Zoom presentations and the requirements there. So he got a merit raise, and his hours moved, I don't remember what they were, but they were lower than this, to 7 hours. This is kind of remarkable because given the changes and even the ability to give merit raises, which I hope the Board of Trustees will think, yes, that's certainly justified, will be, look at this, it's also within a very small amount from last year, $500, it looks like to me at a first glance. We also did something important. We increased our maintenance reserves set aside for major maintenance from 5,000 to 7,500. We had reduced them for 2 years because of tight budgets. So half of that will be restored. Now, as you move through here, when you look at the bottom lines of some things that don't change much, this changes a little down here for caring for our space. And this will change a couple of things. One, the janitorial service used to be 12,000, and now it's a sexton for about 10,000, and 2,000 for janitorial supplies, and perhaps for cleaning the rugs once a year. So this is still lower. This, I look at it and think you can see but if I click on it, you can see where I'm clicking. So caring for our space is slightly lower because of that janitorial service being moved elsewhere. Enriching our shared lives section is a little bit lower, 35,000 to 27,000. So the expenses are down there. This is a area to stop on for a minute, because during our concerns about having enough money to pay for what we are doing and what we need to do to sustain ourselves, the same thing is true for the UUA. And so their fair share is higher than what we have at $27,000 rounding. And we paid $23,135 last year. So the board can take a look and they can decide, do we want to stick with this to be more conservative rather than less? Or do we go to the fair share according to the guidelines by UUA? And so that's a policy decision. It could be more than that. I'm not saying it couldn't. You can see the generosity team is higher, the budget level, and that's because it's possible that the generosity team will do something besides what they did this year, including it might involve having stewardship advisors come and learn about our congregation and give us advice and alternatives for our generosity team, what the generosity team does. So you move down here to reaching out, and a lot of these items in going through here were not spent because we were not in our building. And so when our income went down, our spending also went down so that it almost matched it for the current year. So we don't know what those expenses will be, but they're there so that when these different groups start acting again, that money is there for them as they begin to do more activities. Another difference is that we've taken our accounting consultant, and our accounting consultant is Camilla Johnson, and she is an incredibly important member of our professional team. She has assisted in applying for the federal PPP loans, and she assisted in helping us prove that we did what we were supposed to. So the loan they gave us for last year became a grant, and it was realized as income for this year. And so she's a contractor, and it was thought it's not right, it's not appropriate to have her up with our employees. It's clear that she's a contractor and she has other jobs and she is an independent professional, but she is really important to us in these past 2 years, especially these past 2 years. So our regular operating budget is slightly lower than the 503,000 for last year. And our draft budget is 494,000. I didn't put it in yellow. Some of you'd say, put it in red, David. I know at least 3 people who'd say, put it in red, David. Our current income on a 1-year basis does not match our income by almost $100,000. And I heard this from another member who was president of the, I don't know what it was at that particular time, but we have heard this. I won't trust my memory, so I won't be a poor narrator, but I will tell you that we have looked at $100,000 deficit for at least 3 years in a row and tried to figure out how to deal with them. I'll say that, and I can prove that with the statistics. So what happened, so that I'm telling you this is good news, for a year that up until, I don't know, I'll take a deep breath, up until 30 days ago, 60 days ago felt just like it was unending fear and fear for the entire nation. Spirit Level Foundation has sent us $12,740, and we've already received the funds. This was within 90 days. The County of Ventura has approved $5,000, and they will send it to us within 90 days. The Forgivable PPP loan has sent us $60,640, and we have received that. So we have the possibility of doing this budget with about a 3%, slightly more than 3% deficit for next year, given what we know currently at this time. And there's an option to get another $5,000 grant from the County of Ventura, but it's not been applied for, and so it's not in process, but I've been in communication with them. We do have to prove to our to the Small Business Administration that we qualified for the 60,000 later this year, to prove that it's to move it from a loan to a grant. And we have the documents to do that. So I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to move up to the top of this. It looks like we've got plenty of time to get most of the questions. Before I take it, and I will slowly move through this in case it prompts you, but if you have a two, but I want you to be able to see the detail. And we don't mail this out to everyone because this is draft number 14. And there you may get draft 15 because of what you say today or the questions that you ask or what the board does. I think it's this Thursday night. So I'll take my 3 deep breaths.
Yukio, you are muted. I think you are speaking, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was muted. Thank you. I was thanking David for going through this. There is a lot of information. Some of us have seen this many times, but most of you have not. So I know there's a lot to take in here, but if you have questions, as I was saying earlier, you can type them in the chat box or use the raise hand option. in Zoom, but you have to go to reactions. And I see we do have a question from Gudrun. Please enumerate sexton's duties. There is a job description for that. I don't have it in front of me, but basically, we've had a cleaning service that we've used for all the time that I've been with the church, last 5 years. And so we are considering trying something different, hiring a sexton who would, as a primary set of duties, would clean the church. But we felt having a sexton would also offer the flexibility of having them do some things that the cleaning crew would not do, including helping with maintaining for example, the outdoor sanctuary and possibly other duties. And Dana, I don't know if you want to amplify that.
Sure. This is an idea that has been floating around for a while. Buildings and Grounds really has wanted something like this for a while, a person to lean into. At the moment, the idea is that while we are not in the building, 80%, and this is also something that the job description was developed largely by Will Devine and the Buildings and Grounds Committee, and Jennifer Luce, who knows what's going on at the church a lot. It would start, until we are back together, 80% outdoors, 20% indoors, and probably flip. And those percentages would probably flip afterward, looking very much for someone who can also learn about, if they don't already know about, native plants and how to take care of those in the outdoor sanctuary.
So I don't see any other questions in the chat box, and
then I'll start moving slowly and just make some other comments then that might be useful for people to understand the budget. So we've got ample time to do that. If you don't want to share this process, certainly you can sign off, but I'll tell you some of the other things we thought about as we did this, and I'll scroll through to do that. This number for income here is primarily for our exercise class and our Tai Chi. And we receive fees for those classes, and we'll only receive those if they come back into the building, and then it will be for partial year. So in this case, we took a partial amount on it and just estimated half a year, I think it is. We just have her, and that's what this $1,900 is. And there's no idea about whether that will continue. And our facilities use fees, we've been getting none. So that will probably start happening the second half of this year. And so there's a small amount or a half amount put there. And raise your hand or ask a question, raise your hand and ask a question if you see something as I do this that you want to hear more about. I've explained in detail the biggest part of our costs for employee packages. So I don't.
David, Dennis Charles has a question.
Yes. Either unmute or. Dennis, can you unmute?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. The question I had, since I've been checking the grounds once a week, and my wife's on the building and ground committee with Will, is major maintenance. We'd gotten into a pattern of putting $10,000 into that category for quite a few years. which can, you know, and that was a big boost. And we painted the building and did the parking lot and did a lot of stuff, but there is other stuff out there, I suspect. One would be the irrigation. The irrigation is only going to the outdoor sanctuary, is what Linda said. Like she has to hand water the olive tree at the entrance, you know, once a month. And then there's the willow trees in the parking lot, which are the, you know, the smaller ones, not the pine trees. And these apparently are getting no water. We're in a drought, and they probably need pruning. I think we had some self-pruning earlier this year that went into the back branch, fell off. So I'm thinking this is actually a pretty good year for us financially, David, thanks to all the work you've done. And we traditionally don't spend all of our budget, and I would suggest that we do the $10,000 major maintenance, and next year is going to be a tougher year, and then maybe if it needs to be brought down, that would be the time to do it rather than this year. So thank you.
Let me ask you a question, Dennis, because I don't remember exactly. Are you aware of how much money is built up in the major maintenance fund that could be used this year without any further action or without?
I used to get all those things, David, but I don't.
Let me pull it up. Let me pull it up then. That's why I asked that. I didn't ask you to put you on the spot. I'm going to pull that amount up.
Yeah, since I've been off the finance committee, I don't get anything, which I would like to get. I don't know whether it's online or you'd have to send it to me, because I know Linda likes to know how much money is. And it looks like you did increase water because
I have to stand up. I got a cramp in my leg. Sorry.
It looks like the city of Ventura's got a plan to raise water rates like 8% a year the next 5 years, or something pretty aggressive. And I've noticed that the
okay, there's $12,000 that could be used for the current year, and then 1 month at a time under the proposal, it moves from our operating fund to major maintenance. So there's $12,000 that can be spent today, and to answer your question more directly, what I think you're getting at is the board can consider whether or not they want to raise back up to the $10,000 this year or next year. Am I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, I think it should be done. This is the year to strike on that, because I don't know how much the willows would cost to prune, but maybe $15,000. And could you imagine if you had to run water underneath the parking lot? I assume the lines going out to the willow trees, the water lines are still good, but you know, Merle had been keeping this up, and then along the front of the building, if you notice, there's a very large tree that is now dead, and I guess Mike16 is gonna work with David Henkel, and they're gonna take it down, but maybe that's died due to the lack of water, because we're at a serious drought for it to be killing a large tree like that. So,
okay, anyway. Thank you for your comments, and we would defer. That question is certainly, or that your comment is certainly going to be, has been heard by the Board of Trustees and everyone watching this, and that is an option to increase that for this year. I'm moving down to see if there's anything else. We did experience and have experienced a significant decrease in our electricity bills finally, but that will go back up after we start meeting in the sanctuary. and so we had lots and lots of committees that didn't spend their money. This is here, adult program contractors. We charge fees for our Tai Chi and our exercise classes, and then we paid independent contractors to do those classes. And so if they come back into our building and those classes start, we will get both fees and expenses. And I have no idea. No one does. We don't know that at this point in time. So I've already outlined that the board has a policy issue to decide about how much to give to the UUA. And it's a policy issue where the leaders in the church are usually aware of the services that we get from the program fund, from UUA, and the help that they give us that's behind the scenes. And it is our intention to pay our fair share on a regular basis, or it has been the boards, I say our, but the Board of Trustees have said we want to pay our fair share whenever we can. And I've discussed other things that are in the budget that have not been spending money, committees and teams, but that are likely to, so there are numbers in the budget. So that still leaves us with a modest deficit with the generosity of our members, the increased pledges that we got. In the end, we're just about what we had hoped we would get from the generosity team's actions and the donations, and increase in pledges for enough people, so that with that and the huge small business administration loan, or federal, we call it that because they administer it for the federal government. So that is where we are, at about a $19,000 deficit as of today in the budget proposal. I will entertain any more questions that anyone has.
I don't see anything in the chat box, and I don't see any hands unless I'm missing something.
And if any of you really enjoyed looking at those spreadsheets as we did that today, that kind of put some dopamine in your head, you could volunteer for the finance committee, because we have lots of spreadsheets to get you excited.
Gudrun had her hand up.
Yeah, I saw Gudrun.
Thank you, David, and all who contributed skills and effort. I'm curious about our newsletter, the hard copy. Is it costing us? Are we going online predominantly? What's our plan with our newsletter? Thank you.
Well, maybe I can answer part of that. Our newsletter is currently suspended because our primary editor, Sheila, as you know, has been having health issues. So I think it's unclear at this point whether the newsletter will be continued, possibly, depending on Sheila's health. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I would pop in that this is not a budget issue, Gudrun. It's not about money. It's about other things. And Sheila is here with us. I don't want to put Sheila on the spot in any way about this. Sheila is, had a streak of decades of doing the newsletter, and we are just, it's all up in the air right now. So don't have a firm answer about that.
Right.
And, but by the way, if I didn't, thank you, Sheila and Tessa, who have been a team for doing this forever and ever and ever. And so yay. Thank you. And just Sheila, I'm speaking to Sheila now in front of God and everybody. We just want you to improve in your health. That is the main concern that we have, and we'll figure out everything else. Just get better and feel better. Okay, Sheila? Okay.
Yeah.
I can see your face. I don't know if you're seeing mine, but good, Sheila. You're looking better. You're looking great. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally echo those comments. I'm not seeing any other hands or questions at the moment. Well, I'm amazed that we aren't having more questions. David's presentation must have been.
Yeah, I saw that question from Ray Escobedo.
Oh.
Where on the line item do we have?
Ray Vargas, yeah.
Excuse me, Ray Vargas. Where on the line item do we have for plain honorariums for guest speakers? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if it comes from the worship service budget. I don't know. I don't know that.
David, that is 100% in the worship budget.
Thank you. Wow, I think every time I give a presentation, I'm going to say I have to go to another meeting. It makes me not talk so much. I'm done.
Okay, I'm just wanting to make sure people have plenty of time to think about if they have a question or comment. Doesn't have to be a question.
Andrew has his hand raised. He's probably been watching on his cell phone because he's up on his property.
Well, I see Andrew there. Andrew, do you want to unmute if you have a question?
Yes, I had a question and I was thinking about the environmental side of, in conjunction of what Reverend Dana is doing, being aboard with the city of Ventura. And I wanted to ask if there's any type of a collective, how you say that? That's why it's a question, because I don't even know it myself, but as far as trying to get environmental friendly Ventura, being environmental friendly, and if we can, is there a budget or is there something where we can get together? I remember there was one group, it was a class or something that we were taking with some young students, and I had offered one of the cars I had to make it an electric, you know, converting it to electric, and different projects like that. Is there something there?
There is a line item. There is a group of people that was active before COVID stopped a lot of activities. And it has a line item in the budget. It's called 7 Pete. And you can get on their mailing list.
The one, yes.
Or on their emailing list. So when they begin becoming more active, you'll know what they're doing. So that'd be my suggestion. And Kitty Merrill or Reverend Dana may have comments on that.
I guess the thing I'd jump in with is that there isn't a large group that's, you know, looking for projects, but we are a group that welcome people coming in who want to put energy into projects. So it's one of those things that you'd want to, you know, we all want to work together to build something that would accomplish what you're looking at. So yes, 7 Pete is looking forward to having, you know, more energy and more activity with people participating as we all start coming back together.
Oh, cool. Oh, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll have to, if possible, have 7 Pete get in touch with me and maybe send me some information. I can get back in touch with them. This all happened so long ago, it seems, you know.
A lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you for your question, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah, you got it. All right.
Looks like Laura Farr has a question.
I'm just making a comment based on the last comment that the city of Ventura is working on their 20-year plan or something like that right now. And on the last workshop I went to, they made a comment that they were going to be reaching out to organizations to get their input. And I was just thinking, based on Andrew's comment, that it might be good to have to see if the city wants to meet with our congregation to get input from us as to what we think is important for the city of Ventura, and these kinds of things that he's mentioning, making sure they're keeping sustainability and the environment as a high priority would be good.
Can I pop in there on that? And then I also have something else that I wanted to do, is that, yes, and I'm on that general plan advisory committee. And one of the things that I, they said that one of the reasons they chose me is that I have connections with the faith community, and I don't know how deep those are, but I sure got connections with this faith community. And so we'll definitely keep people in the loop, and I would love it. I have been, the last meeting, this is way off our topic. Yes, good. Thank you. I love it. And yes, we will have all of that. I won't share anecdotes. I'll stop myself. I also, though, wanted to answer the second half of Ray's question. I realized that I hadn't seen it all. There may be some lower expenses because of Zoom, and for worship, for guest speakers, and also because we're doing some collaborations this summer, we're going to have fewer guest speakers, and yet it's not necessarily proven to be a savings because there are other expenses. So, and it's not a huge amount of money. I think the budget line is $4,500, and I don't think we have spent quite all of it. And I just, given how many twists and turns there have been, the worship team and I submitted the same amount for this next year, because we just don't know.
I'm going to say goodbye to all of you at this time, and thank you for a great meeting and for great attendance. It's really been good.
Okay.
Thank you so much, David. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, David, can't quite leave yet because you have to look at what people are putting nice things about you in the chat. And I want to say them out loud. Just wow. And I don't know if that's what Yukio was about to do. So.
Well, no, go ahead.
Well, no, just before David goes, people are still writing there. That's all.
Yeah, well, from Kathleen Wheeler, thank you, David, and Finance Committee for all the work you've done on this. And Claudia Silverman says, thank you, David. And David Frank had written kudos to the Finance Committee.
Thank you. You're welcome.
We all appreciate you, David, and thank you for being here. Well, let's see. We are literally in my watch at 12:29. I don't know. I'm looking for hands or either on the screen or you're waving, and I don't see. Wendell, do you have a comment? You can sing. Okay.
Hi, Yukio, it's Jennifer.
Oh, hi, Jennifer. Do you have a question or comment?
This is the most confusing meeting I've ever listened to.
No. Mm-hmm.
Well, you mean all the details about the budget and so on?
Well, there was, Jennifer, yes, I was thinking about you. This was, we were talking about a document that was shared, yeah. But, and having an awareness of speaking about the particulars of each item in a different way would be useful for you, is my guess. And we will think about you going forward. I imagine this was confusing. And
I understood very little. It was like, I kind of sat there and I thought, oh God, this is way over my head.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, we can always talk later. I'll be happy to chat with you about whatever, or give you a better sense of what we were talking about.
It's okay. I just, I was just trying to see if I could even make sense out of what was being said. And it sounds very detailed and, quite, I got the part of the cost of living adjustment for Social Security. They say there's not going to be a cost of living adjustment. Does that mean I wouldn't be, I don't know if that would mean, would I not be getting any more benefits or what? I don't understand what that actually means.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other comments or questions before we close?
I understand it, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, well, if not, then Reverend Dana, do you have any closing words you'd like to offer?
I do. And before I offer them, I just want to spread a few more thanks around, because there are so many people, there's so much work that goes into this. There's so many hands at this. So I want to particularly hold up the personnel team. I know they've been talked about before. And I see only at the moment Laura Farr of that team with us. If you all would offer your thanks to Laura Farr, Shelley Sussman, and David Henkel, who are holding down, we did some really, really important work in terms of regularizing how we evaluate, putting everyone on the same footing in terms of how we evaluate where people fall on the UUA salary recommendations. And it was really, really good work. And it just has made things much more even keel and clearer for all for setting this part of this budget. And so that was really, really important. So thank you, Laura. And other people, please reach out to David Henkel and Shelley Sussman and tell them thank you, because it is, there's various levels of work that the personnel team is doing. And right around a certain part, when the budget is first coming together at the beginning of the year, there's a crunch. And step up at time. So that is just me saying that thank you. And then also to the board and the generosity team. Oh my gosh, we are in good shape. And I love it, Dennis, that you are like, yeah, we're in good enough shape. Let's restore the rest of that budget and other things rather than looking at scarcity, because there's an abundance this year. So just let us all be grateful.
Do you want to say something, Jennifer?
Yeah, I do. I was just thinking, I think you had said something about trustees. You said it was Brian Buck was the trustee for this year. And then I know you said you're the president of what?
Jennifer, Brian Buck was the past president of the Board of Trustees, and I'm the current president.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then another thing, you had said something about there was something about how not all of it has been ironed out yet, as far as that the budget had not been ironed out. Part of it was still trying.
Yeah. What I had said earlier was this meeting is to have an opportunity to share the budget that the Finance Committee had put together. It has not been officially approved yet. The board will weigh in on it, and then at the annual meeting next month, the entire congregation will be able to vote on it. So that's the process.
That makes a lot of sense, because I was like really confused. I know the COLA had been mentioned. I know what that number is. It was like 1% last year. And this year there's not I haven't actually contacted the SSA to find out anything, but you know, I had heard, you know, you had mentioned the COLA, and I'm like, I don't know anything. I know what it is. It's the cost of living adjustment,
Right.
but it was only spent last year. So we may or may not have one this year. I don't know.
Okay, Jennifer, you know what this is speaking to me about is that before the next meeting, so the next meeting is in a month, Sunday, June 13th.
Okay.
We need to make certain that we get you some materials, or have somebody has a conversation and explains a little bit ahead of time what's going on, so you can join us and
Yeah.
follow along much.
Well, you don't have to,
clearly.
you know,
Okay.
Part of the problem is I don't do emailing anymore, so I can't, like, you know, because the only person I know who has any knowledge about the technological aspect of this is George Nichols, and I don't know when he's...
Jennifer, we will definitely make certain that somebody reaches out to you ahead of the next meeting. And, you know, it might be both technologically and content-wise, okay?
If I could interrupt for a second, I think Jennifer's talking about her personal Social Security increase, and that should be, looks like we're having inflation, so it'll be better. I can almost guarantee you.
That's a good sign. That's a good sign.
But we don't know till the end of the year. That's when the government decides.
Okay, you know, that clarifies it for me, because I was really, you know, when you guys were getting into all this discussion about percentages and all this other stuff, I mean, even though I know what a percentage is and I know how to calculate it, I was like, okay, what, you know, the numbers that you were quoting just didn't make a whole lot of sense. But I think now that I know that you're talking about in a collective sense for the whole congregation, it makes a lot now than it did. So I appreciate your willingness to let me sit in on the meeting and at least listen in on it, because it is. I'm really excited.
It's not Social Security. It was just respect to
the meeting. I'm sure it'll be more clear next year, and I hope I can participate next year in it. If I can, I will.
Yeah. And Jennifer, thank you so much for being here and hanging in there and doing all that mental effort, trying to follow along. We really appreciate you very much.
And I appreciate your willingness to come on to Zoom, and, you know, because Zoom is one of the only platforms that I've had any real success with.
Good.
I know George and I've been exploring getting me some new technology so that I can write, you know, have, you know, some technology that I can write things with.
Yeah.
But I have my Zoom platform is a really good way for me to get access to this service. So, and to all the great.
We will keep track of all of that, and thank you. And right now we're getting ready to close the meeting. So I have a closing reading. And for everybody, you pretty much square there now, Jennifer?
Well, I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay. So thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. We had at the most, 47 people, 47 screens here, which is indeed impressive. And it is one of the gifts of, in fact, this technology. So we are going to have hybrid services and figure out how to make this keep happening.
Great.
Okay, so to close us off and send you all out into a hopefully sunny afternoon, from Pamela Rumenchik. Why community? To remember that one is not a complete number, that we need both roots and wings, that strength comes from relationship and mutuality, that we know life in and through one another. That is why community. Thank you for being part of this community.
Thank you, Reverend Dana, and thank you all for being here. And we'll see you either next Sunday or certainly, hopefully, at the annual meeting.